Record this.
There you go.
Yay, I did it. Okay. All right. So hi everybody. Um, Welcome to Plan Today for Your Tomorrow. I am Bethany Alexander. I'm a realtor with Baird and Warner. Um, I've been in the business for 23 years, and I'm excited that all of you could join us and all of those who are going to watch later and join later on. I hope all of you find tonight valuable. I know when the panelists and I have done this in the past, I learned new things. So I hope you do as well. Um, a few quick housekeeping details. One, as I mentioned, this is being recorded. Um, Two, for our guests, if you would mute yourself just in case there's phones ringing or background noise or whatnot. And then the panelists will stay on so that we can all talk and interact easily. Um, and and then let's see, what was my other housekeeping thing? Oh, and if you have, while we're talking, if you think of questions or comments or anything like that, put them down into the chat and I'll keep an eye on those. And if I feel like there's something that we need to address immediately as part of the conversation, we will. Otherwise, I'm going to save them till the end. And then we'll have our Q&A at that time. Okay. Um, so, are we ready? Are we ready to get started for tomorrow? Excellent. So as I mentioned, just a little bit of background. As I mentioned, I've been a realtor for 23 years. And over the last several years, I feel like I've been working with more and more clients over the age of 55. And I've discovered that there are different conversations that need to be had with this demographic. It's um, Some of them are the same questions, but then there's different things, and also talking about creating this concept of aging in place. You know, where is this the last place? Is this still a part of the process? You know, as we get older. Um, I'm 55 as well, and I'm now putting my plan in place and thinking about that. So that's why I find that this is very valuable and something I put together. Some of you may already have this, but I ended up putting this packet together called Planning Your Next Journey. That kind of starts this conversation going and start wrapping your head around it. And I've partnered up with Eric and Joni and Nancy and Adam, who unfortunately he's with Northwestern Mutual. He can't be here tonight. He had a family commitment. Um, but partnering with them to help with this process of how do you plan for the future, smartly, safely, responsibly, and um, and it's very helpful. That's all I can say. So that's why we're doing this is to help you. And I have no idea why my computer does this thing, this wave, but whatever. Um, so that's just a little, I know all of our guests on the call know who I am, other things about me, but um, that's why I've created this little seminar workshop. And I want to now turn it over to the panelists just so that they can give a quick introduction about who they are, what they do, and what they love about what they do. So, Joni, I'm going to let you go first. Welcome.
Great. Thank you. That's me. You know who you're supposed to look for in the squares, right? I'm Joni Ackerman, and I am with a company called Downsizing by Design. And we're basically a senior and specialty move management company. So, what does that mean? It means that we help people in all stages of the moving, relocating, or aging in place process. So, we do a lot of things like a whole suite of services, actually. So, sorting and downsizing and helping you with that whole process, which is the most daunting, I think, to most people, no matter what stage you're in, whether you're just starting, whether you are maybe you're just young and you moved and you've never unpacked half your boxes, right? And that's part of the process is going through things and making sense and being purposeful. and making sure that you're working towards an end game. But sorting and downsizing and organizing is a big part of what we do. We do that a lot before people are ready to list their home because very often that's part of what keeps them feeling stuck. Like I'm not ready to move because of all this, years and years of accumulation. And so a lot of times we will do a project in phases, and the first phase is that sorting and downsizing. But then we move forward to the packing and moving and clear outs and donation pickups and estate sales, all the things that happen when you're trying to kind of transition to a different space. So, why do I like this job? I mean, gosh, I love helping people when we go in and they're feeling stressed and they're feeling anxious. And then after our visit and we kind of come up with a move plan or create a downsizing plan, you can just see their shoulders start to relax. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is doable. And you're breaking it down into small chunks. We call it downsizing one bite at a time. So that's my favorite part is watching people's shoulders relax, realizing that there's kind of help out there to help them through the process.
Fantastic. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, Next up is Miss Nancy.
Hi, good
Welcome.
evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Bethany, for inviting me to this, meeting. I'm excited. A little bit about myself. I have been a mortgage loan officer since 2001. I have, again, the purpose of what I do and what I enjoy and why I've been doing it for so long, I think is it's the feel of knowing that you've helped someone, that you've guided them, you've given them the right, information on what steps they need to do to get ready to either become a buyer or in the process of, as you said, thinking about aging, what is the step to downsizing, right? What is the next step for them? And making sure what programs I have available to help them through that process. Either with the home that they currently have or being, looking at what options they have or using some of the value or thinking about purchasing something brand new, right? The steps on getting them there. And that's something that I'm passionate about, be it with someone that, as I said, a first-time home buyer or someone that's owned homes numerous times and now are trying to find that final home that's going to be long-term for them. And it's definitely something I enjoy doing. So
Great.
here, hopefully with a lot of information to help everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. And last but not least, the gentleman in the room, Eric Klein. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Klein with Care Patrol. I am a care manager and a family advocate. So I work with families who are trying to navigate one of the toughest decisions they might ever face, and that's where and how to care for themselves or aging families. At Care Patrol, we don't provide the care. We help families understand what their options are. So that might mean staying at home safely, or it's often transitioning into a senior living community. I guide them through the process at no cost to the family. It is a free service, so families never get a bill from Care Patrol. And I'm here today because I do this professionally, but I've also personally been a caregiver for my wife of 30 years. And I understand the emotional and overwhelming stress these decisions can cause on families. So I want to help that make that process a little maybe less maybe a little clearer and less stressful for families. Thanks.
Outstanding. Thank you, Eric. Um, so before I start, I know Mary and Deepika, you are not, oh, there's Deepika. I know Mary, you're not on, but maybe you can type in the chat some answers to these questions. We wanted to just kind of survey where all of you are so that we make sure we're covering the topics that are important to all of you. Okay. And not droning on about something that you could care less about. So we want to keep focused. So we're going to do a quick little survey. You can raise your hand, you can nod your head, whatever. So the first question is, how many of you see yourselves aging in place in your current home? No, no. Okay. Yeah, we know that, Deepika.
Let's
Okay.
hope not, but
We see
definitely have interest in knowing this for my parents and the people
excellent.
around.
All right. Well, that's one of the questions. Well done. And Mary said no. Okay. Um, needing, d- do you any, so we all know we're going to go someplace else. So on that train of thought, do any of you see yourself with your aging in place plan or dreams of moving someplace like a different state or moving in with family or closer to family? Is that a possibility? Yes? No? No? Okay. All right. Very good. Moving to a different state from Mary. Okay, great. Um, Topeka said, kind of prompted this question about do you have family members that might need assistance with creating a family aging in place plan? And you need to kind of figure out how to have that conversation with them, whether it's parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, spouses. No? Okay. All right. But we've got Topeka, so we'll touch base on a little bit of that. And then, how many of you feel that you are financially prepared for an aging in place plan? Yeah, yes, no, okay. All right, very good. Yes, from Mary. All right, excellent. Okay, well, this is good. This is good. So um, we're going to get all of our necessary things covered tonight. So let's get started. Um, so what I want to, think where I want to begin is deciding where, how does one decide where they want to age in place? You've already said it's not where you currently live. It's going to be someplace else. So, I want to start with Eric on that of if you can touch base, Eric, a little bit about like what are some things, lifestyle things that people need to think about in terms of where they go and what some of those alternatives are? I mean, I can speak to independent living, if somebody downsizing to a ranch home or a condo or something like that, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But what other options out there are there for us, Eric?
Yeah, so when we talk about aging in place, the first step is really understanding what your future is going to look like. It helps to have definitions. Independent living can mean a home, downsizing. It could be a condo or an apartment, or it can be an age-restricted community like a 55 plus active adult. So there might be a social component, but there's usually no care. When you think about assisted living, that's help with physical needs, activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, toileting. They often do things like medication management, your meals, your linens, your laundry, and your housekeeping. So there's a rent plus also a care component to it. Memory care can be done in an assisted environment, but is often secure. That's for people that have advanced cognitive issues, maybe need cueing, prompting, or additional engagement. And we also have skilled nursing. Most people think of that as a nursing home, and it's a clinical need that's complex. A vent, a trach, or an IV. Or in Illinois, it's for people that simply ran out of money because their social safety net is Medicaid. And in order to determine the proper level of where people are going to end up, we really ask people to focus on three different areas. What is their physical need? So that could be mobility. Can you do the stairs? Are you a fall risk? It could be the cognitive health. Do you have memory challenges, executive functioning issues, maybe decision-making problems? And who and where is your support system? Are they nearby? Do you have family that can help you? Do you have friends that support you? Because the reality is, most of these types of moves and decisions, they don't happen when it's convenient. They happen after a fall, a hospitalization, or a crisis. Planning early gives you control. Waiting often takes that control away. And I always encourage families to make decisions while you have options, not while you're in a bigger crisis.
Excellent. Um, do most of these places, just kind of a quick follow-up to that, the different places you're talking about, are they easy places for people to visit? I mean, can anybody call and schedule an appointment to take a tour of different places, or is that something you help them with?
Yeah, touring and visiting communities is part of our process. When most people go online to start searching, and they often get what we call captured by an online aggregator. That's a very big sales and marketing pitch. It's very hard to get insight into communities from pictures or Google reviews. So when there's a care component involved, we get to know the management because they deal with staffing, problems, billing. We get to know the care teams because those are nurses, shower aides, all types of caregivers. And we start to tailor solutions to meet people's care needs. And at Care Patrol, we actually tour with families. So we ask that people reach out to us first before doing their online homework because we're going to streamline that process as we become the funnel to getting you to the right place or community.
Great, great. And um, there was something you said, Eric, that triggered a question in my brain for Joni. I need talk about memory care. I need to write these things down. But Joni, can you follow up anything on in your field in terms of assessing your needs of where, like, how do you decide where to go based on just simply like what people have, like what they're like how they're functioning in their home. Hi, Bernie. Hi, Tony. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Bethany.
Hi.
Thank you.
If you don't mind staying on mute, that would be great. And if you think of questions, please enter them in the chat.
I
Thank
keep
you.
my mouth shut.
Okay, thanks, Bernie. Um,
Well,
is that
we
question
work
making sense, Joni?
sort of. I mean, we work with all kinds of communities, all the kinds of communities that Eric was talking about. So 55 plus communities. We've helped people just downsize into a ranch home because they're just looking for a smaller footprint with no stairs.
Mhm.
We've helped people move into all levels of care in the senior community. So really, those decisions are not things that we would help them make. It's somebody like Eric or the community itself that would
Mhm.
help provide that expertise to make sure that they qualify for the correct level of care. But what we do is really help them by kind of looking at their things, right? And making sure that they're safe. Safety comes first, always, whether you're moving to a ranch house or just a smaller footprint, or even just within your space. And so making sure that you are safe, because like Eric said, a fall is usually the first thing that will springboard into necessitating a move. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to keep everybody safe. One of the ways we do that is by a floor planning service. That's one of the services we offer. So no matter where you're moving and downsizing, very often you're not going to be able to take everything from your larger home. And a floor plan really helps that whole downsizing process get started. Because once you know what furniture will fit into your new space, whether it's going from a 4 bedroom home to a 2 bedroom apartment or condo, then you'll be able to know what pieces of furniture might fit. It will help you literally start understanding the physical pieces that you need to downsize into, and then what belongings will fit into those furniture pieces. So it's kind of like the jump start of it all. And when we do our floor planning, we're making sure that safety is first and foremost, making sure that we're floor planning for your needs now, but knowing in 10 years from now, if you need a walker or a wheelchair or any other service devices, that it will work for you in that space as well. So it's kind of those things that we look at as a whole, but
Mhm.
making sure that we're streamlining it for each individual client.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And Nancy, in terms of when somebody, let's just say somebody's deciding that their downsizing situation, their aging in place is not necessarily going into a tiered level of care or anything like that, that they're just simply going from their big old house into something smaller, a condo or all of that, um, but they're retired or they're of a certain age and they go, well, I can't get a mortgage or, can I still get a loan? Those types of things. What, how would you speak to that for them, for the kind of the financial side of this next step?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things and one of the questions I get often is there an age limit, right? Like for someone to be financed. And that is something that is a, big mistake on people's mind to think that there is, because there's not, right? Obviously, we do require that they show some kind of income, right? I've worked with people that are retired, getting Social Security, pensions. We do allow that as, to be shown as their income. And the benefit to that is we actually inflate that. We take it up to 125% of what they're actually getting to qualify them. So that helps them in the qualifying aspect of it, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, that is something that we see all the time, right? I do see it. People worry about that with the current home that they have, for example, to downsize, what would their payments look like? What would their interest rate look like? What they ask all kinds of questions, right? To see what's going to be the best fit for them. And
Mhm.
I obviously, very important thing we talk about is what their comfort level is, right? Because, payment, some people are very payment conscious, right? Or I don't want to finance too much. I don't want to finance for 30 years. Can I do it for a shorter term? All of that's considered when we discuss that, what their plans are and what they're going to do with the home if they have a current home, right? That what's their thoughts about that house, right?
Mhm.
And the new one that they're buying, what options can we offer them to prepare that home or that property, the condo that they're buying to be accessible for long term, right? There we offer, obviously, we could do rehab loans for some of these properties. We offer that for them to be able to make that home livable for them, to thinking
Right.
future wise, right?
Yeah.
Be it has a tub, let's convert it to a shower, right? Things
Mhm.
like that we consider. So
The
we have
safety issues
products.
that Joni was
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah, the
Mhm.
counters, for example, the flooring, right? If there's
Mhm.
any steps, things that can be changed, opening, the floor plan a little bit more in the living room, those kind of things we think about, and we can offer programs, or excuse me, types of loans for that. As I said, there are rehab loans, there are loans that will help them make these adjustments to the new property also. So all of that's
Great.
considered. So yeah.
Good. Awesome. Excellent. And then Eric, since Adam's not here, I'm going to kind of toss this question your way because I'm guessing you can speak to it from a little bit on the financial side for some of these places, such as either assisted living or, like you said, the continuum of care places where you have rent, but then you also have the care. What's some of either the financial requirements or what are they looking for on a financial basis to make sure that they can continue to live there for their life, whatever.
Yeah, that's an important question. So, a survey of both the speakers and the other folks on the call. How many people know how much Medicare covers for assisted living and long-term care? Nothing, right?
Nope.
Most people assume
Really?
that Medicare is going to cover long-term care. There is no coverage. Some of the biggest mistakes family make are not aligning their housing decisions with the financial reality early enough. So they don't properly understand their current and future care needs, and they're also underestimating the cost of those future care needs. So people have to ask a couple of questions. How long can they realistically afford to stay at home if necessary? What would assisted living or memory care cost and compare to staying at home? And is home part of the long-term strategy, or is it something that they will eventually need to liquidate to pay for their care? So when we start to look at the numbers side by side, people are often surprised that, first of all of these levels of care are very expensive, and that staying at home isn't always the most cost-effective option. The average cost for 24-hour home care in Chicagoland is $28,000 a month for one caregiver. The average cost for assisted living is $10,000 to $12,000 a month. And the average cost for skilled care in a nursing home is $15,000 to $20,000 per month. And in Illinois, if you run out of the ability to private pay, you leave. The only level of care that converts to Medicaid is skilled nursing. So you have to have the private pay funds available to pay for your care, or you end up in nursing care. Two-thirds of people in nursing homes, they're not there for a clinical or a medical reason. They're there because they ran out of money and had to go on Medicaid. Less than 4 to 6% of the people that we deal with have any type of long-term care insurance. So very often, adult kids helping their parents navigate this journey realize the need for long-term care insurance for themselves, and buying that at a younger age is much more affordable than trying to do it in your 60s or 70s.
Okay, well, that was
Depressing?
Wah, wah.
that old movie, Reality Bites, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I think, but I think that's sort of a great transition is to kind of my next thought is when is the right time to make a change? Because as both Eric and Joni said, you don't want to wait till there's a problem because then it can be harder because then you aren't prepared and clearly um I mean this is why I've started kind of wrapping my head around this as I've taken clients to different places such as Bernie and Tony there. We took a tour of a tiered level of care facility, and that made kind of open my eyes. I'm like, wow, okay, this is actually really cool. I need to think about this and I need to kind of start preparing for it for down the road. But at what in your experience, I'm going to start with Joni first on this. In your experience, um, when do you feel is the right time for people to say, yes, it's time to leave the space I'm in and to do something different, whether it's changing the space you're in or going someplace else. Sorry.
And I can't tell you when it's the right time for each one specifically, but I can
Mhm.
tell you in our experience, everyone we've worked with, we hear it time and time and time again. Everybody says once they're moved in, they're like, I should have done this 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Everybody says
Mhm.
that. You know,
Yeah.
what the roadblock is, it's just so overwhelming to think about. And it's such an emotional and difficult transition. You know, that's a really big decision moving after you live someplace for so long, and the unknown of moving to a new space, a new community, all of the things make it emotionally blocking, but also I don't have the physical strength. The last time I moved was 40 years ago, and I could pack a box and throw it in the truck, right?
Hmm.
Now, there are services like ours that can help you with all of the physical things, but also the emotional piece as well. We've taken companies like ours, we can take all the logistics off your plate and we manage it all. So we're not only doing the helping you with sorting and downsizing and making the tough decisions on what to bring and what's important to keep for yourself, but also doing the packing and the moving, coordinating with all of the third party services, the movers, the donation companies, all of that, so that you can just physically worry about transitioning into your new home and look forward to a new start. And
Hmm.
everybody after that journey, you know, the hard part is over. They all say that. They said, gosh, I wish I would have done this 5 to 10 years ago. My mom included. She said the same thing.
Hmm.
So that would be my
Same.
advice. You can't start early enough in terms of preparing yourself, downsizing a little bit, decluttering a little bit. That's the jump start right there.
Okay, great. Um, Eric, how about you? I mean, what if, in your experience, do you is the trigger for somebody to move when there's a problem? Is that typically what happens, or do you feel that people are making that decision sooner?
Yeah, that's one of the most important conversations we have with families. The general advice is you want to make decisions while you have options, not while you're in crisis. So there's really two paths to a move. The first one is proactive. That's when you're still independent and you can choose your environment. And then the second is reactive. It's often after a health event, and that forces a decision on you. Um, Tiered living communities where you can move from independent living to assisted living, memory care, and sometimes skilled nursing. They offer something that's really valuable, and that's continuity. But to take advantage of those, we call them CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities. For the most part, you have to go in while you're independent. That's how you qualify for it. The benefit of moving earlier is that you build relationships, you can adjust emotionally. It is easier to orient to a new environment when you're not going through a crisis or a disease process,
Mm.
and you maintain your independence longer. Um, the downside of waiting is that the move happens under more stress. Um, the person moving has less say in the decision the longer you wait. Very often, those decisions are made for you. Um, your clinical care need could dictate your level of care. You might wait too long to go into assisted living, and that's why people end up in nursing homes. So think of assisted living as an apartment-like environment. You got a great restaurant, a movie theater, a beauty salon, and you got to think of nursing care as an institutional environment. It's hospital-like. You might have a roommate and a curtain. When people delay, that's often the only choice. So a person moving has less to say the longer they wait. And waiting could also mean that you no longer qualify for that independent living and that you require a higher level of care.
Mhm.
Um, it's better to move 6 months too early than one day too late. It's a great thing to remember.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
Um, and
I
Nancy,
also
yeah,
I
go
also
ahead.
think just for the social piece of moving into a community or an environment with
Mhm.
like-minded people,
Right.
um, what that does for wellness is incredible. So a lot of
Mhm.
times if you're living and you're staying in your home longer than you should and you're pretty much homebound and you may not drive any longer or you're not able to get out as much, so socializing is people become lonely and it's a little bit more difficult, so being in
Mhm.
a community environment does wonders and it really helps every aspect of your life.
I've noticed that with my parents when they moved into a 55 and older community. It's all independent living, but they in their previous home, they were perfectly happy to sit and read books all day and tend the garden and be antisocial. And now my dad cooks for the whole neighborhood and they host a Super Bowl party and they go, there's the monthly men's breakfast and the monthly women's lunch and they're I've just noticed their mental health
Mhm.
notice a significant uptick in that because they're being more engaged and interactive
Yeah.
with other people. So that's a great observation, Joni. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Nancy, I think you can probably speak something to this, but um, in terms of timing and all of that, what are some steps that people at an older age can make to make sure they're financially secure as they can be? Can you speak anything
Yeah.
on
Um,
that?
if we're thinking, someone that is, let's say, a current homeowner, right?
Mm.
Home is possibly paid for, thinking, like you said, what is the next step? Where maybe downsizing, right? I think the first step would be to see what the value is on that home, right? That you have, considering talking to someone as yourself, Bethany, to get maybe a market analysis to know what type of equity, what type of value you have to make the move that you want to make, right? I think that's a good first step because I think that will be the key for you to know where your buying power is, right? Be it financing it, right? Using that equity to purchase the new property, either in cash or obviously financing it. I think that's going to be something that is important that someone looks at that, because making that decision is hard without knowing, right? And I think people don't know I've had clients that have no clue what their homes are worth. And that's the first thing I always tell them. I'm like, I think if you've, talk to a realtor, we get get you a market analysis, what kind of funds you'll have the day you do decide to sell that home. Think about the condition of that home, right? If you've been in it for 30 plus 50 years, which we know people are, what can you do to get that house ready to sell, right? Is it, there are loans, like I said, that we could do to get that home ready, right? For when you do sell it, excuse me, it sells right away. There's no issues. There's no additional things that you have to do. And then think about where you're moving, right? Make sure it has everything that you need, and I think that's important that they look at that, the values on their homes, and use that money as to make the investment for the right move for the future for them.
Great.
So,
Great. Um, Unfortunately, it looks like logged off, and this was just about to segue into
oh
what she
no.
needed, but we're going to
Hmm.
cover it anyway because everybody else, you might be able to have this conversation with, um, might behoove you to have this conversation with your children to start thinking, for them to start thinking about the future and how to have these conversations. Um, but the next topic was kind of about if you're not ready to age in place now, that this is somewhere, 20, 30 years, 30, 40 even years down the line. Um, it's kind of like, well, why do I need to think about that now? And why, I'm still in my prime of life, and that just seems, those kind of things just seem so far off in the distance. But I think we've already started to see how it really isn't and how you kind of need to prepare for it. And Eric, I'm going to swing to your way. We were talking about it earlier and you kind of touched on it about in terms of this stuff is expensive. This is a very expensive stage of our lives. So, what should somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s start thinking about and doing to prepare for this next step?
Yeah, for younger folks in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, we're actually seeing an earlier onset of disease. So a lot of people think of dementia as something grandma gets in her 80s, but we see housewives in their 40s with full-blown dementia. We see
Hmm.
men that are, 20, 30 years before retirement getting movement disorders like Parkinson's. We see a lot of MS and muscular dystrophy in the Chicagoland area. So people have to start preparing earlier. That can mean long-term care insurance. It could mean understanding the cost of care and trying to self-insure and putting money aside. It can mean building a support system around them so that they can age in place with non-professional, non-skilled, but family help. And this is probably one of the hardest parts of the entire process because the people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are often helping their parents go through these issues too.
Hmm.
Um, it's it used to be very unusual to see a 43-year-old housewife that has dementia along with their 70-year-old parent, but it's actually becoming more common now. So one of the things I've learned is that the adult kids need to prepare themselves to have those conversations with their parents. And there's always ways to start those conversations. One thing that doesn't work is you need to move or you're going to fall and break a hip. It's much better to start those conversations with, I love you and I'm concerned about you, or I want to help you maintain your independence as long as possible. And we want to start those conversations early. We don't want to wait for the crisis. We want to ask a lot of questions. We don't want to give directions. It's very hard for a senior parent to have a role reversal where their adult child is telling them what to do. So as the adult kid, you want to listen more. If you are listening more than you're talking, you're probably doing something right. And when we have those conversations, we want to focus on the safety and quality of life. It's not controlling what a parent is doing. It's helping them maintain their independence as long as possible. And this is not a one-time conversation. It's a series of conversations over time.
Hmm.
If we approach the conversations with empathy instead of urgency, we usually get a lot further. And at the end of the day, there's really no one size fits all approach. The right decision is the one that balances safety, finances, and quality of life. And it's going to start to feel right for your family as you process it. Um, what we do as care managers and family advocates is to help you see those options clearly so that you can make the best decision possible.
Great. One thing we've noticed in the real estate market lately is there's a lot of multi-generational housing and living conditions. combination, as you touched on, is, younger people caring for their parents or vice versa. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is for them to live under the same roof. Um, and it's can be more affordable and all of that. Joni, do you have suggestions or have you encountered clients who are in that type of situation, and how do you find that balance between my house, your house, our house, and finding that space for
Yeah.
everybody?
That's tough. If you're having multi-generations in one home. I mean, I guess it's like organizing your space and kind of re-looking at it, to make sure that each space is functional and purposeful. So if, for example, maybe the dining room used to be to hold formal events. Now it maybe needs to be a place where kids do homework or crafting as well as,
Mhm.
bigger family dinner. So there might need to be some organizational changes that you're going to make some, just create purposeful spaces. So that means the downsizing and the right sizing and making sure that the decisions that you're making fit in each space rather than everybody having all their stuff kind of all over the house. I guess
Mhm.
just making more functional spaces and making them dedicated for their purpose might help that situation so that there's not so much overlap.
Okay, great. And then Nancy, kind of on that similar wavelength, I'm sure you've been seeing it as well with doing mortgages for multiple family members and all of that. Are there any nuances that if, say, you had multiple generations purchasing a home together, are there any things, special things that parties should be looking, be aware of in that process in terms of like joint ownership and that type of thing?
Yeah, I do get that question, and I do see that there are let's say the children have moving in the parents, right? Because they're at a point of needing some type of assistance. And if that's happening, we think about what kind of property are they wanting to purchase, right? Is that something, is it going to be a two-story home? Is it going to be a ranch house, right? We look at all that too. I explain it to them for them to understand thinking long term for their parents also, right? Make it the accommodations comfortable when they're trying to do the financing part of them, both of them applying. I mean, again, as I said, we obviously there's no age limit. We look at both sides on the income part for qualifying. They think about that home, what future wise, is it a home that they can think about maybe once they buy it, should that be considered into a maybe talking to an attorney or someone after the fact to think about a trust, right? Long term, what can they do to make sure that that home is secure and that someone is going to be responsible if for some reason the home gets bought by the parents and maybe the children move in, right? They're not on the loan, but yet they want them to be responsible. They want them to be part of the transaction. So we talk about that. I've had clients that after the fact, we talk about how are we going to make sure that that home is secure, so they definitely go into speaking to someone about long-term wills, trust, putting the home into some kind of a trust for them. That is their livelihood after they're gone, right, for their children. So yeah, I've looked at all of that.
Right. And then the last thing I'll just kind of touch on, I know it sort of kind of goes back to one of the previous things, but I know we talked in our little survey we did earlier about moving out of state, and whether it's to be closer to family or just change in lifestyle and all of that. The one thing I will say, in my experience and my recommendations is when if you're thinking of going someplace else, one, if it's not to be closer to family and it's just, oh, we vacationed in Palm Springs and we loved it. Okay, you were there for a week. I love watching some of the hometown shows and people like from California move to Mississippi. I'm like, their culture shock. But to really spend time before making that move, spending solid amount of time there and investigating. And even if you are moving someplace where your other family members live, you're moving closer to them, is are you going to have good access to health care? Um, and moving, if you have current health issues, moving someplace else, are those going to carry over that quality of care that you're receiving? Are there, the places of worship or the activities that you do, those types of things? It's just making sure that the life you have here is that you're going to have that same kind of quality of life and care wherever you want to go. I think those are important things to think about. And if you are moving someplace, maybe that's further away from your family, then I think that's part of an important conversation to have as well, as you're creating these plans with your family, is to really talk about that, um, my parents joke about moving to Portugal. I'm like, no.
Why? They
No,
say it's beautiful and cheap.
I mean, that would be great. I mean, maybe but I'm not ready to move there too. But like we've had that conversation, is we've agreed 2 hour radius. That's the max that we're willing to be apart from one another, just because I'm an only child. And so that's what I'm in terms of family for needing help. So I think those are some additional things to think about as you create this plan. So continuing with family a little bit, kind of the last topic, and then we'll open up to some questions, is um, Joni, you and I have seen it all,
Yeah.
the clutter, the stuff, the memories, the the things that we just can't get rid of. And I will say it's a long process. I think this is also, going back to the when is the right time, um, is it takes time. It's not like all of a sudden you go, oh, I have this great idea. I'm going to transition into this. So let's do it now. I have clients recently where it was a year. It took them a year, one to find where they wanted to move to, and two, to clean out their house of 40 plus years. And I kept saying, call Joni.
Yeah. It's
But
another reason.
they enlisted their children, and the children got to go there every weekend and help them clean out room by room and closet by closet. But so how can, yes, we want them to call you, Joni, and make their lives simpler. But
Mhm.
how can family help? How can we, even in our younger years, how do we kind of start preparing for this next step? What
Yeah,
should we do?
I do lots of presentations to people considering moving or adult children of people who are considering moving. And so we just give them, the downsizing or decluttering tips that anyone can start, and you should start today. We all should be doing it, you and I as
Spring
well,
cleaning.
because
Mhm.
we're all consumers, aren't we? We all accumulate stuff. That's the world we live in. Amazon is at our door way too often, but you can start now, and I always say just start small. Start with a single shelf or a single drawer or a single small pantry, and take everything out. And we call it the four sort method, and sort them into four piles. Get four boxes and label them keep, toss, donate, and sell. And once you start that process, take everything off of that one shelf and put it into those categories. What is not functional anymore or broken or out of date goes into the toss pile. If it's something that you think has purpose and can be donated, great. Somebody else will love to have that. You might not need it any longer. And then the things you're keeping, put it in a nice container that fits on that shelf, label it, and then you're ready to go. Then when you are ready to move, I'm just simplifying it here, but when you are ready to move, if you've gone through that process shelf by shelf or closet by closet, you are ready to go, and it won't seem like this over mounting task that could take a year. Because if you do it little by little and, allow yourself a half hour to 45 minutes to do small tasks at a time, you can really get through that process. So the keep, toss, donate, sell, the four sort method. And then I always say use colored tape, like get painter's tape. And I always say green means go. Green means things that you're going to keep and move with you. So you can do it on furniture, you can do it on smaller items in that closet. And you label things with green tape. Things that go to family might be yellow. Things that are donatable, you might put blue painter's tape on. And that way it physically, visually you can see how you've sorted and how you've made those things into piles, and then take those and move them away. And don't second guess yourself. Move it along. When you decided to donate or remove something or sell something, then move it out of your space so that you can then have a functional space. And then it's more, it's something that's sustainable because you're only keeping what belongs in that space.
Awesome. Colored tape. Love it. See,
Colored tape.
I got
It
I got
works.
a new tip. I have a new tip. I love
It
it.
works
Yeah.
beautifully. It
Yeah.
works because it's visual and
Yep.
everybody can see that. So
Yeah.
it really does a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was reading the AARP bulletin the other night, and they had a big two-page thing about decluttering and spring cleaning and all of that. And I thought they had a really good piece of advice too, that when you start attacking your home and decluttering, is start with something, like you said, a drawer or something like a bathroom or a
Yeah.
linen closet, because there's very little emotional attachment
Yeah.
in those spaces.
Non-sentimental.
Don't
Yes.
start with your clothes closet, or
Yeah.
don't start,
With
with,
your family photos
yeah,
or
family photo.
mementos.
Yeah, yes. Any of the books even,
Yeah.
um, but just,
There's a great book out there. It's called Keep the Memories, Not the Stuff. And it's a really poignant message to
Mhm.
don't be, don't be so attached to things. They're just things. Keep those
Mhm.
memories.
Yeah,
And that's the important part.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. We're all going to start cleaning this weekend. Um, Um, Eric, you kind of already mentioned this before about having the conversation. How do you, and like you said, starting with empathy and starting about with I care about you, that type of thing. Is there, how would you, if someone was having that conversation, and even by saying, I love you, I care about you, I'm worried, any of that, when they're met with resistance, or stubbornness, how does someone keep going with that conversation in a nice way?
Yeah, there's very few of us that think that we're going to get old and have to leave our home. And one thing we find out is that assumptions don't work. So I'm going to take a little different track than this. Uh,
Hmm.
Most adults think that if something happens to them, their oldest daughter is going to provide care. Most dads think that if they run out of money, their son is going to take care of them. And most adult kids assume that their parents have prepared financially for their long-term care and healthcare needs. And the one thing every family finds out is that assumptions don't work. So we work in two capacities. We help people in a crisis. If you break a hip and go to the hospital, you're going to need some help. But the better way to do that is long-term care planning. And that's family conversations over a period of time, usually with experts that come around, a group like us that help the family. It could be a recent disease diagnosis. It could be understanding your limitations as we age, struggling to walk up the stairs. Um, Maybe it's tremors from a recent movement disorder, or a Parkinson's diagnosis. So the earlier that we have those conversations, the more we can help families maintain their independence and help them prepare financially for the long term. So when families say, when should we start that conversation? It's really as early as possible.
Great. Excellent. Um, I had a couple questions again from Deepika, who had to go off, but this would be a question for you, Nancy, I think. For income, are you able to use your retirement as part of the income for a loan qualification? what happens if you have the asset value in your accounts to downsize but no income?
Yeah, I was going to respond, but I figured we would probably discuss
Sure.
the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use your retirement assets. Obviously, we're going to look and see if there's some kind of documented regular withdrawals being taken. In her case, she's mentioning that if she's not working, the overall amount of assets that she has, can she use that to qualify? Yes. There are programs or types of loans that we can do where we utilize just the assets. It's kind of an asset depletion loan, we call it. So yeah, there are possibilities to do that. We definitely have programs for that.
Right. And then Erica question she also had, are there often wait lists for some of these locations that you've been talking about, and how far out should you be thinking about touring and viewing places?
Yeah, there are wait lists. So we are starting to see a systemic shortage of beds right now. So we are seeing wait lists and they are getting longer. Some of the
Is this
buy-in,
across the board, both assisted living and as well as like the CCRC?
it is. Most of the CCRCs are buy-in communities, meaning you put a large lump sum down up front and then you pay a monthly rent. Those communities can often be 6 months, 2 years, or more, depending on the size unit you want. The larger units are in higher demand. The rental communities, where you have a shorter termination period, a 30-day out if necessary, and they don't require a large lump sum up front, we're starting to see 2, 3, 5, and 6 month wait lists for a one-bedroom apartment. Two-bedroom apartments could be 6 months to 2 years right now.
Wow.
So you really do want to plan ahead because if you react in a crisis, you might not have the size apartment or the preferred community that you want.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to have her watch this again and fast forward so she gets questions answered. Um, is there, before I turn it over to our viewers to ask other questions, is there anything to my panel that you feel like, hey, we didn't cover this, or I want to mention this is like a little tidbit I wanted to mention? Or do you feel like you've shared what needs to be shared?
I guess you did speak about people moving interstate.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you know, we're part of NASM, which is the National Association of Senior Move Managers. So there are companies like ours that help with that whole process all across the country. And so very often we've had a lot of people moving back towards, back from Florida to be closer to their kids, for example. And we'll partner with a move manager in another state that does that end of it, and then we'll help on the flip side, on the other
Right.
side, or vice versa. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of resources and a lot of help through that national association, if you're looking for support.
Right. And likewise, I am, Baird and Warner is part of the largest relocation company in the world called, creatively enough, Leading Real Estate Companies of the World. And so we have the ability to um, connect you with realtors in other states and other countries. So if my parents do decide to move to Portugal, I can find them a real estate agent there to help them find a home, and it just helps take um, the question of like, well, who do I work with, and we're able to pre-screen and pair you up with someone like me. Yay.
If I
All
could
right.
jump in, Care Patrol has 240 offices throughout the country, so we can place
Ah,
people in senior living just about anywhere.
wow. That is
Nice.
cool. That's cool. Um, and then Eric, we are a free service. Okay, so Eric put up his information. I'm going to be sending, just so all of our viewers know, I'm going to be forwarding you tomorrow some materials from the team here that will give you all of their contact information as well as some information that they wanted to share with you, some flyers and things like that. So watch your inbox for those tomorrow. And would like to see if Mary, Kathy, Bernie, and Tony have any questions that they would like to ask. Just simply unmute yourself and fire away. if there's something you'd like to know. Also, welcome your feedback. Yes, Kathy.
Having had a mom that went through dementia for 7 years and taking care of her with, luckily, my other two sisters, is there any type of service that you would call a mental health specialist or someone who understands someone dying, someone with dementia, and so on, that you can hire either intermittently or on a kind of consistent basis for somebody?
So are you looking for support in the home, like
Yeah.
like a caregiver to help with cueing, prompting, socialization, redirection?
Not on Zoom.
Yeah, so those are in-home non-skilled caregivers, and many of them are dementia trained. So the challenge with dementia is that when something is physical, meaning like I can't dress from the waist down, or I need cueing or shower assistance, those are good tasks for home care providers. They can do those well. The average cost for home care is between $37 and $50 an hour in Chicagoland, and there are minimums. So typically, to get an experienced dementia caregiver, you need 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So the cost of that care can often be prohibitive, and there's often a lot of downtime. So you're paying a caregiver to sit on their phone, to read a book or watch TV because they're not hands-on all the time. When somebody reaches about 8 hours of home care, that's when it's usually time to start thinking about community care from a financial perspective, because that gives you the cueing, prompting, and engagement, but it also gives you 24-hour access to care, support, meals, and interaction in a way that you just can't do at home. The cost for about 8 hours of home care can often be the same as 24-hour community care.
Which was how much again? I'm so sorry.
Average right now is about $10,000 a month.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Mary, I see you've unmuted.
No, I just want to say thanks. I mean, it's been helpful. It's good to know that when we're planning this move, whenever it happens, that we've thought about most of what you brought up. So it's good that I didn't miss anything. I loved the 4-sort method. I thought, okay, that's golden.
Great.
And after I'm recovered from the surgery, it's going to be a shelf at a time, and I love the idea because it's doable.
That's
So
great.
thanks.
That's great. That's wonderful. Bernie and Tony.
Thank you all very much. Very helpful. Thanks for your services and best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? No? All right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I know there were a few more people who were supposed to join us, but life happens. And so I will
I
just
take it there are no plans for CRCs on the moon in the near future?
Give Elon Musk a couple of years. I think it's figure it out.
Well,
He's so focused on Mars, but talk about being far away from your kids then,
Yeah, that breaks the 2-hour radius.
Yeah.
It sure does. It sure does. Yeah. Well, I'm going to share everybody's information with all of you in the morning, and
Great.
'cause
Thank you.
I'm gonna go
Thank
grab
you.
some dinner now. But Joni, Eric, Nancy, thank you so much. This was great. I'm so glad we got an opportunity to do this again. And thank you all for joining us, and feel free to follow up with us with individual questions you have. And we're all here to be your guide on your journey. And we thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
All right. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you.
everyone.
All
Take
right,
care.
good night.
You all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.